The quiet hum of suburban life wrapped around Sarah's new home like a warm blanket. Freshly painted walls, a tidy front yard, and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze all promised a fresh start for her and her son, Max. After months of juggling, 2 jobs and cramped apartment living, this was the new beginning she had dreamed of. Peace, safety, and a place to finally call home. But peace, as Sarah was about to learn, could be deceiving. The moving truck had barely pulled away when she spotted her next-door neighbor for the first time. Linda, or as the neighborhood had come to call her quietly among themselves, HOA Karen. She was standing by her pristine white fence, arms crossed, eyes narrowed as if measuring Sarah's every move. Linda's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile that suggested amusement, superiority, and something far more unsettling beneath the surface. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Linda called out in a voice sharp as winter wind. "Just make sure you follow the rules around here. We like things tidy." Sarah nodded politely, ignoring the prickling sensation crawling up her spine. The words sounded harmless, but the tone promised she would be watched closely. Over the next few days, Sarah tried to settle in, but unease began to twist inside her. She noticed Linda's sharp gaze every time she stepped outside, and the casual yet pointed remarks about lawn care and trash bins felt like warnings rather than advice. The final straw came when Sarah's first online order, a birthday gift. For Max, an expensive drone she had painstakingly saved for, was due to arrive. Sarah marked the date on her calendar and made sure she was home. The drone was supposed to be delivered on a Thursday morning, and she waited eagerly, peering out the window every few minutes. But the afternoon slipped away, and the package never arrived. A sinking feeling settled in her chest. She checked with the delivery company. The status said delivered, left on the front porch at 10:34 a.m. But her porch was empty. She knocked on neighbors' doors, but no one had seen anything unusual. When she returned to her porch, she spotted something odd, fresh footprints, leading away from the doorstep, muddy and unmistakably recent. And then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Linda, leaning casually on her own porch railing across the street. That smirk again, like she was watching a private show. "Funny thing," Linda called across, her voice dripping with mock innocence. "I thought it was hilarious when you asked about your package. You really think someone would steal from this neighborhood?" Sarah's stomach twisted. "Have you seen anything? Heard anything?" Linda shrugged. "Maybe someone wanted to teach you a lesson about trusting strangers." The words stung, but more than that was the chill in Linda's gaze. It wasn't just a joke. There was something dark behind those eyes. Later that night, Sarah's sleep was shattered by the sound of footsteps outside. She peeked through the blinds but saw nothing except shadows flitting between the houses. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Next time, watch your porch a little closer." Her heart pounded. Was this a warning? A threat? Or just someone messing with her mind? She locked the door and pulled the curtains tight, but the feeling lingered. Sarah knew. This was only the beginning. In this neighborhood, appearances hid dangerous games, and Linda, with that crooked smirk, was the queen of the game. The next morning, the sun rose over the quiet neighborhood, but Sarah's unease didn't fade with the dawn. If anything, it had deepened overnight. That chilling text message, "Next time, watch your porch a little closer," felt like a shadow looming over her new life. She told herself to stay calm, to be rational, but the creeping fear wouldn't let go. As she stepped outside, the neighborhood seemed untouched by anything sinister. Lawns were trimmed to perfection, mailboxes gleamed, and the occasional chirp of birds masked the tension beneath the surface. Yet Sarah noticed something strange, a pattern emerging. Over the past week, nearly every household had reported missing packages. Jewelry, electronics, even groceries, items vanishing as if whisked away by ghosts. The residents whispered in hushed tones about the phantom thief, but no one dared say the name out loud. Linda. Sarah's eyes darted to Linda's house across the street, her neighbor's windows gleaming in the morning sun. Yesterday's smirk had become something more sinister. It was as if Linda enjoyed the chaos she sowed, each stolen package a victory in some twisted game. Determined not to become another victim, Sarah decided to take action. She began watching the street more closely, timing the delivery trucks, noting the comings and goings. One night, armed with a flashlight and a heart pounding with nervous energy, she hid behind a bush near her porch. Hours ticked by. The neighborhood slept. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, she saw it. A shadow moving stealthily from house to house, hands swiftly snatching parcels left unattended on porches. Her breath caught. It was Linda. The silhouette was unmistakable, the slow, deliberate, movements like a cat on the prowl. Sarah's fingers trembled as she raised her phone, flicked on the flashlight, and captured grainy video footage. But as Linda's eyes caught the beam, she froze for a split second, then disappeared into the night, package in hand. Sarah's pulse raced. She had proof. But was she ready for what might come next? Word spread quickly among the victims, and Sarah found herself reluctantly thrust into a leadership role. A secret alliance of neighbors formed, bound by frustration and fear. They shared stories, pieced together clues, and whispered theories over backyard fences and late-night phone calls. One neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, an elderly man with a keen eye and a collection of security cameras, offered to help. "We need more than just luck," he said gruffly. "We need eyes everywhere." Cameras were discreetly installed, hidden in flower pots behind curtains, and even disguised as garden decorations. The feeling of being watched was unnerving, but it was better than being helpless. Yet the more Sarah watched, the more unsettling. Details surfaced. Footprints around the stolen packages weren't always clean. Sometimes they were muddy, sometimes dry, but always consistent. Linda's presence was undeniable. But why? What was driving her? Late one evening, Sarah confronted. "Linda on her front porch, why are you doing this?" Sarah asked, voice low but steady. Linda's eyes flashed with amusement. "Oh, Sarah, you really think it's about the packages? This neighborhood is full of rules, restrictions, and suffocating control. Maybe I'm just shaking things up." "You should learn to laugh." But Sarah wasn't laughing. The stakes were rising. The next night, the cameras captured something even more disturbing. Linda wasn't acting alone. A second figure, cloaked in dark clothes, moved silently beside her, helping stash stolen goods in a hidden compartment under Linda's porch steps. Sarah's heart pounded as she watched the footage over and over. This was no petty prank anymore. It was organized, deliberate, and terrifyingly close to home. Who was the mysterious accomplice? And how deep did this conspiracy run? As Sarah lay awake that night, the weight of the neighborhood's silence pressed down on her. Behind every perfect lawn and freshly painted fence, secrets festered, and the game Linda had started was only just beginning. The days that followed were a mix of adrenaline and paranoia. Sarah felt the weight of the neighborhood's unspoken fear pressing down on her like a thick fog. Everyone was watching, yet no one spoke openly. The perfect suburban facade hid growing tension and secrets far darker than missing packages. Late one evening, after a whispered phone call with Mr. Jenkins, Sarah gathered a small group of neighbors in her living room. Their faces were drawn, eyes darting nervously as if the walls themselves had ears. "We can't keep pretending this isn't happening," Sarah said firmly. "Linda's stealing from all of us, and worse, she's not alone. Mrs. Patel, a soft-spoken woman with sharp eyes, nodded. The cameras we put up caught more than just her. Someone's helping her. If we don't act, it'll only get worse. The group exchanged worried glances. Taking action meant risking retaliation, or worse, alienation in the tight-knit HOA community. "Are we sure about this?" asked Tom, a young father whose missing gaming console was one of the many stolen items. "What if we get caught spying on our neighbors?" Sarah took a deep breath. "We have to. We need proof, and fast." They agreed to expand the surveillance, disguising cameras as birdhouses, garden gnomes, even sprinkler heads. Each device captured shadows slipping through yards, whispered footsteps, and the chilling figure of Linda, always accompanied by the mysterious accomplice. One night, Sarah sat by her window, clutching a mug of cold coffee, watching the footage on her laptop. Her hands trembled when she saw Linda's accomplice, a tall figure, moving with unnatural ease in the dark, their face obscured by a hoodie. Suddenly, a soft knock came at the door. Sarah's heart jumped. It was Mr. Jenkins, holding a small flash drive. "I downloaded everything from my cameras," he said quietly. "This isn't just about theft anymore. I think Linda's involved in something bigger, something dangerous." Sarah swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Jenkins looked around nervously before lowering his voice. "I've seen strange packages coming and going, late-night meetings between her and people who don't live here. I think there's a black market ring operating right under our noses." A cold shiver ran down Sarah's spine. The neighborhood was more than just a victim of petty theft. It was a front for something far more sinister. The group agreed to meet again, this time at night, in a nearby park under the cover of darkness. There they planned their next move, collecting evidence, contacting authorities, and preparing for the confrontation they all dreaded. But paranoia tightened its grip. The missing camera from last week wasn't the only sign. Cars unfamiliar. To the neighborhood prowled the streets, headlights flickering like ominous eyes. Phones buzzed with strange, silent calls, and Sarah felt eyes on her every time she stepped outside. One evening, while walking Max to the bus stop, she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. The windows were tinted, but the engine hummed quietly. She felt the familiar prickle of fear. Someone was watching. Back home, she checked the footage again. There it was. A blurry image of the same SUV near Linda's house, arriving just minutes before Linda and the accomplice vanished into the night. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears. The stakes were rising, and the safety of the neighborhood was slipping through their fingers. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, mind racing with questions and fears. Who was the accomplice? What was Linda really after? And could she trust the people standing beside her? Or was someone else playing? A darker game? The game of shadows had begun, and Sarah knew there was no turning back. The monthly HOA meeting was always a delicate affair, a place where civility masked simmering tensions. But tonight, the atmosphere was charged with an undercurrent of suspicion, whispered fears, and unspoken accusations. Sarah knew this meeting would be her moment to expose Linda or risk losing everything. As she stepped into the brightly lit community center, dozens of neighbors eyed her with a mix of curiosity and wariness. Some avoided her gaze, others gave subtle nods of support. The room smelled faintly of stale coffee and polished wood. The low murmur of voices filled the air, but all eyes sharpened as the HOA president called the meeting to order. Linda was already there, poised, flawless, radiating confidence. Her smile was sharp and practiced, eyes scanning the crowd like a predator sizing up prey. When it was Sarah's turn to speak, her throat tightened, but she forced calm into her voice. "I know many of you have noticed packages disappearing lately," Sarah began, locking eyes with familiar faces. "I believe someone in our community is responsible. I have footage, evidence. And I think it's time we confront the truth." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, others exchanged skeptical looks. Linda leaned forward, lips curling, into a smug smile. "Oh, Sarah," Linda interrupted sweetly, her voice syrupy but laced with venom. "Isn't it sad when someone new to the neighborhood tries to stir trouble? You must be lonely here." The room tensed. Sarah's heart pounded, but she held her ground. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Sarah replied, voice steady. "I'm here to protect our community." Linda shook her head slowly, then leaned in conspiratorially. "You don't know the rules here," she said, eyes gleaming. "You don't understand how things work. Maybe your packages were lost in delivery. Maybe you're just imagining things." A few neighbors chuckled nervously, the doubt seeping like poison into the room. Sarah's frustration boiled, but she forced herself to stay composed. "I'm not imagining anything," she said firmly. "And I'm not the only one who's been affected. Others have lost packages too. We have the footage to prove it." Just then, the lights flickered briefly, a subtle reminder of the fragile balance in this house of cards. At that moment, a voice rang out from the back of the room. "I believe her," said Mrs. Patel, stepping forward. "I've seen Linda lurking around my porch at odd hours. I'm not afraid to say it." More heads turned. A few neighbors whispered in agreement. Linda's expression hardened, but her smile didn't falter. "Oh, Mrs. Patel, you're just as naive as Sarah," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "We all make mistakes in this neighborhood. Let's not tear each other apart over gossip." Suddenly, the HOA president raised a hand, trying to restore order. "Please, let's keep this civil," he said, but the tension had already erupted. Sarah glanced around. She saw the flicker of uncertainty, the fractures beneath the polished veneer. Just as she felt the momentum shifting, the doors burst open. Two police officers stepped in, eyes scanning the room. The murmur hushed into silence. One officer cleared his throat. "We have reason to believe criminal activity is taking place here. We're here to speak with some residents." Linda's confident mask cracked ever so slightly. Sarah's breath caught. Had the police arrived because of the evidence she and the neighbors had collected? Was justice finally within reach? Or was this just the start of a deeper nightmare? As the officers approached Linda, a collective gasp swept the room. The trap had been sprung. The police escorting Linda out of the community center sent a ripple of shock through the neighborhood. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Some neighbors stared in disbelief. Others exchanged furtive glances that hinted at secrets long buried. Sarah's heart raced, a mix of vindication and dread swirling inside her, but the real revelations were yet to come. Later that evening, Sarah sat with Mr. Jenkins and Mrs. Patel in her living room, the flickering light from the fireplace casting long shadows on the walls. The flash drive Jenkins had handed her weeks ago lay open on the coffee table, a trove of surveillance footage, late-night meetings, and suspicious exchanges that now took on a sinister clarity. "We didn't just catch a petty thief," Jenkins muttered, rubbing his temples. "Linda's part of something bigger. Look here." On the screen, a figure moved through the darkened streets with practiced ease, loading boxes into a nondescript van. Linda was there, her face grim, handing off packages to a group of shadowy figures who spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Sarah's eyes widened. "This isn't just about stolen deliveries. What are they smuggling?" The footage cut to a clandestine meeting inside Linda's house. Hidden cameras caught heated discussions about a secret network trafficking stolen goods far beyond the neighborhood. Electronics, luxury items, even forged documents. Linda's smirk had been a mask, concealing a desperate scheme fueled by grudges and greed. "I can't believe it," Mrs. Patel whispered. "She was pretending to keep this neighborhood safe, but she was running it from the shadows." Sarah's mind raced back to Linda's cryptic comment at the meeting about shaking things up and teaching lessons. Now it was clear those words were a threat, a warning of the chaos Linda had intended to unleash. But why? What had driven Linda down this dark path? The answer came unexpectedly. Sarah discovered a series of old newspaper clippings tucked away. In Linda's belongings, articles about a failed business venture, bankruptcy, and a bitter legal battle with the HOA board. Linda had lost everything and was rumored to harbor a vendetta against the community she once called home. She wasn't just a thief, she was a woman broken by resentment and fueled by revenge. As Sarah absorbed the gravity of the situation, a knock at the door startled her. It was Detective Morales, the lead investigator assigned to the case. "We've uncovered more than we expected," Morales said quietly. "Linda's network extends beyond stolen packages. There's evidence of grand larceny, fraud, and possibly involvement with organized crime." Sarah's breath caught. The peaceful neighborhood was a facade. Beneath it simmered a criminal enterprise no one had suspected. Morales continued, "We're going to need everyone's cooperation. This is bigger than any of us imagined." Sarah nodded, a sense of resolve hardening inside her. She had uncovered the truth. But now the real battle to protect her home was just beginning. That night, as the neighborhood slept under a blanket of stars, Sarah stood by her window, watching the shadows dance. The game had changed. Linda's arrest was just one move in a much larger, dangerous chessboard, and Sarah knew she would have to be ready for whatever came next. The arrest of Linda sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. For a moment, it felt as if the nightmare was over, that justice had been served, and the community could finally breathe again. But Sarah knew better. Sometimes the darkest secrets lingered just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to claw their way back. Days passed with an uneasy quiet. The stolen packages stopped disappearing, the mysterious SUV no longer prowled the streets, and neighbors slowly began to smile again, cautiously. But Sarah's instincts screamed that something was still wrong. One late afternoon, as Sarah sorted through mail, a folded note slipped out from between the envelopes. No sender, no signature. "You think you're safe? Think again." Her pulse quickened. The threat was real, and it came from someone close. She shared the note with Mr. Jenkins and Mrs. Patel. They exchanged worried looks. "Someone in the neighborhood is playing a dangerous game," Jenkins said gravely. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching her every move. She decided to dig deeper. One evening, she accessed the HOA's private online forum, usually filled with mundane discussions about landscaping and trash schedules. But now, her eyes scanned the posts with suspicion. Then she found it. A series of cryptic messages, deleted and edited, hinting at insider knowledge of Linda's operation. More alarming was the user's handle, something familiar. Neighbor 47, Sarah's stomach dropped. That was her own username. Someone had hacked her account. The realization hit like a punch. The betrayal was closer than she'd feared. Determined to uncover the mole, Sarah began discreetly confronting neighbors, watching for any signs of suspicious behavior. Trust became a scarce commodity. Every smile seemed forced, every greeting laced with hidden meaning. Then, late one night, Mrs. Patel confided a secret. "I've heard rumors," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "Someone from the HOA board might be protecting Linda. They knew more than they let on." Sarah's heart pounded. Could the corruption run even deeper? She requested a private meeting with the HOA president, Mr. Caldwell, a man who had always seemed overly polished and careful with his words. In his office, beneath harsh fluorescent lights, Caldwell's mask slipped for just a moment. "Sarah," he said smoothly, "Linda was a liability. We tried to contain the damage quietly. Sometimes keeping the peace means making compromises." His words dripped with cold calculation. You were protecting her? Sarah asked, voice tight. Caldwell shrugged. We all have to make tough choices. I suggest you be careful who you trust. Not everyone wants the truth to come out. As Sarah left the office, a storm of confusion and anger swirled inside her. The betrayal cut deeper than any theft. The enemy wasn't just outside, it was within. That night, Sarah double-checked the security footage. Among the shadows and blurred figures, she spotted a new face, someone she recognized from the HOA meetings. The accomplice wasn't just Linda's partner in crime, but someone hiding in plain sight. The neighborhood she had hoped to call home was a battlefield. Sarah knew the fight was far from over. The shadows were deep, and the stakes had never been higher. The discovery shook Sarah to her core. The realization that a trusted HOA board member was involved in Linda's criminal enterprise twisted the knife deeper than any stolen package. But it also gave her clarity. The enemy was no longer just Linda and her shadowy accomplice. It was the system itself, hiding behind polite smiles and community meetings. With this new knowledge, Sarah gathered her small group of trusted allies, Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Patel, and Tom. They knew they needed a plan that would expose the truth completely and finally end the nightmare gripping their neighborhood. Mr. Jenkins, with his extensive experience and network of cameras, suggested a daring idea, a sting operation. We bait them, he explained, voice low. We use a package that looks valuable but is empty or rigged. Then we watch who comes for it and catch them red-handed. Sarah hesitated, thinking about the risks. But the neighborhood's trust was fragile, and this was the only way to root out the traitors. They agreed to act quickly. The next morning, they carefully prepared the decoy, a box wrapped in expensive-looking paper labeled with enticing words like limited edition electronics. Inside was a simple, harmless device, a GPS tracker and a hidden camera. The package was placed on Sarah's porch, under the watchful eyes of multiple hidden cameras installed by Mr. Jenkins around the neighborhood. Days passed slowly, with the package untouched, or so it seemed. Then, late one night, the quiet was shattered. Sarah, watching the monitors from her living room, saw movement. The familiar shadow of the accomplice appeared, slipping stealthily across the street. Moments later, another figure joined. It was the HOA president, Mr. Caldwell. Sarah's stomach dropped. Her suspicions were confirmed. Caldwell was deeply involved. The two moved quickly, grabbing the decoy package and disappearing into the night. Sarah's heart raced as she activated the police, sending the live feed and GPS data directly to Detective Morales. Within minutes, flashing lights illuminated the street as law enforcement descended on the neighborhood. Officers surrounded Caldwell's house and the accomplice's hideout. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Inside the homes, officers found stolen goods, forged documents, and evidence linking the pair to a broader criminal network that extended far beyond the neighborhood. As Caldwell was handcuffed, he looked at Sarah with a cold, defeated glare. "You think this ends here?" he spat. "You've only scratched the surface." Sarah stood tall, though her hands trembled. "We're done letting shadows rule our home." The neighborhood slowly began to breathe again. The sting operation had worked, but the victory felt bittersweet. Trust had been shattered, and the community faced a long road to healing. Yet Sarah felt a quiet hope blossoming, the knowledge that courage and vigilance could protect what mattered most. As dawn broke over the quiet streets, Sarah looked out over the neighborhood, knowing that this was not just a battle against crime, it was a fight to reclaim their home. The dust had barely settled when the neighborhood gathered for an emergency HOA meeting, this time not just to discuss stolen packages or petty grievances, but to face the harsh truths that had shaken their community to its core. Sarah stood at the front, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. The arrests of Linda and Mr. Caldwell marked a turning point, but the fight to rebuild trust had only just begun. The police briefed the neighborhood on the extensive criminal operation uncovered, a black market network trafficking stolen goods, forged documents, and even identity theft. The scope was far beyond anything anyone had imagined. For many, it was a bitter pill to swallow. Whispers of betrayal filled the room as neighbors realized how deeply the rot had spread. But then Sarah stepped forward with something unexpected. "While the arrests are a victory," she began, "we also uncovered evidence pointing to a third party, someone who used the neighborhood as a cover but remains at large." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "The investigation is ongoing," Detective Morales confirmed. "But we believe this person may be even more dangerous and more cunning." Suddenly, the tension in the room thickened. Just then, Sarah received a discreet text message on her phone. She glanced at it and paled. The message was a photo, a snapshot of a familiar face. Someone from the neighborhood's past, thought long gone. Linda's sister, the last piece of the puzzle. It turned out that Linda's vendetta wasn't just personal. It was a family operation, with deep roots reaching back years. And this final player had been watching, waiting, and pulling strings behind the scenes. Sarah realized the fight wasn't over. The shadows still lurked, and the neighborhood's safety depended on uncovering this hidden adversary. But for now, there was justice. Linda and Caldwell faced charges of grand larceny, conspiracy, and fraud. The community, bruised but resilient, began the slow process of healing. Sarah, once an outsider, was now a trusted leader, a symbol of courage and vigilance. As she walked through the quiet streets, neighbors greeted her with grateful smiles, their trust slowly rebuilding. Yet beneath the surface, a new war was quietly unfolding. The unexpected twist was clear. Even in the safest neighborhoods, darkness can thrive, but so can the light. Sarah knew one thing for certain. She wouldn't rest until every shadow was brought into the light.